All right, welcome to Traveling on Everyday Spin. I sincerely apologize for running late. Um, IT problems with the laptop. So I sincerely apologize for that. And excuse the sound because I can't use my microphone today. But I think we'll be able to get through this and get some good discussion and get some information to you as well. Excuse me. We'll obviously be starting with the lead story, which is, of course, going to be Bilt. And it's been a wild week. I'm just going to kind of give it a minute or two just in case if I lost people as far as getting on late. So I apologize for that again. But it's been a wild week for Bilt. And big item for us to talk about is obviously we had the official rollout on Wednesday. And it was about what we expected as far as um, the specifics. Most of the rumors were essentially true, which was not surprising. And then, of course, we end up getting to Friday. Well, let's move on into it. I see a few people have jumped in. Once again, I apologize for running late, technical problems. But let's go ahead and get started with, of course, the lead story has got to obviously be Bilt. Listening while working. Hello and happy Sunday to you as well, Stacy. Appreciate you stopping in. Um, and let's go ahead and see let's go and start talking about this Bilt situation. So if we go back to what happened, we had the official word on Wednesday about Bilt, and it was essentially what we all expected, the good and the bad for whatever you may have believed of Bilt. And there was already significant backlash that we were seeing and hearing on Reddit, amongst some of the creators and from the general public. We were hearing a lot of concerns about it. And then we had the New York Times come out, which called Bilt 2.0 the most confusing rewards program they had ever seen. Now, obviously, it's one thing for us in some creators like myself being in our bubble talking about how bad things are, but it's a different thing when you got a major newspaper mentioning it. So 48 hours after Bilt makes this big announcement of 2.0, Ankur Jain puts out an email to acknowledge that he's excited about Bilt 2.0 and about the fact that record applications now, as I told my members when I had a live stream with them a couple days ago, record applications since when? The very beginning of Bilt? Well, of course, it's going to be higher than what it was originally. You already have people that are getting Bilt, so take it with a grain of salt. But he acknowledged that there were a lot of issues, complaints, and so then he has a simpler way for you to have an option of Bilt. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about these two versions of Bilt in a couple of items that you may or may not have actually heard about that does make a difference in regards to how this is going to run and also how you may choose to pick which one is right for you. So let's start talking first about option one, which is Bilt Cash. Now, this is the one that rolled out on Wednesday and earn 4% Bilt Cash on all non-rent mortgage spend. And you can get up to 1x on your rent at a value of $30 Bilt Cash for each 1,000 points. Now, one thing to keep in mind is with the rollout of the second option that we're going to talk about, you can no longer choose to pay that 3% fee on what is not covered by Bilt Cash. So you have to use Bilt Cash for the entire 3% portion of the transaction fee that you're covering. Now that's the situation for it. So you have to keep that in mind. Now, so the example would be is if your rent is $1,000 and you have $30 of Bilt Cash, you're going to get the full 1,000 points because you had enough Bilt Cash to cover the fee. If you only have $15, let's say, of Bilt Cash, then you only are eligible to receive the halfway mark, 500 points. Now, you can redeem Bilt Cash dollar for dollar for monthly credits in the ecosystem, but the problem is, unfortunately, that even with all this time, Bilt still was not able to roll out all of the redemption options and what their values are going to be, whether it's for the hotels through their travel portal, which I believe is 2-day minimum stay, the dining program, which is limited to certain locations, um, smaller portion than Bilt dining overall, as well as gift cards or whatever else it may be. So we still don't know everything you can and cannot do with the Bilt cash. So that was the first version that we had. Then what we ended up going into is, and I'm popping on to see, appreciate you stopping in, James. Yep, talking Bilt. And James, yep, 2-night requirement, agreed. Mr. Coco, every morning, everyone, Bilt option one for me. I'm sure things will change again this year. Yeah, it was definitely interesting to see Ankur Jain come out so fast with it, but it should not have been surprising. The word was out on this whole thing from the very beginning, and it's more than about it being confusing, but we'll get there. So that is what option one was. So then we get option two on Friday, which is what he called a simple fee-free way to earn rewards on housing. So the earning points on housing is in lieu of Bilt cash. So if you choose this option, you will not get the Bilt cash of four Bilt cash dollars for every dollar you spend. You will still get the Bilt cash that may be part of your welcome bonus or the Bilt cash that comes with the Palladium on the annual basis. You'll still get that, but you will not earn Bilt cash on your spend. Now, with this option, you can earn up to 1.25x points per dollar with Bilt. So let's take that same example of $1,000 of rent. This is based on straight percentages now. So if you spend 25% of your monthly rent in a month, you will get a point value of zero point 0.5 points per dollar on your rent in your mortgage. So that threshold would be $250 that you would have to spend in non-rent or mortgage. Then if you spend 50% of your monthly rent, so $500 on that $1,000 mortgage of rent, you'll get 0.75x per point when you spend that on any non-rent or mortgage. Then you can reach 1x, so back to the old school way of dollar for dollar, point for dollar, but you have to spend 75% of your rent. That puts you at $750 in this example. Then, if you spend at least 100% of your rent or mortgage, in this case 1,000, then you'll get 1.25x per point. Now, they will give you a tracking. You'll be able to track your progress in the Bilt app to try to make it easier for you to know where you stand. If you don't reach that $250 mark, let's say that threshold of 25%, then what you'll do is you'll get 250 points each month is what they're going to give you. Now, the two things to keep in mind is I've talked a lot about what they were going to do as it relates to what we saw with Mesa. So that's still my model, even though it was a failure. And the issue that we would end up looking at is, and as he repeated in that email, the whole 4 bananas as your 4 transactions, that's clearly something he's trying to stick with. We knew they had to have a model to make money. We obviously got the rumors that it was going to be the mechanism of the Bilt cash on the processing fee. And so we weren't surprised by that. But the issue became is that a lot of people got, I don't know if it was necessarily so much confusing of where you had to go, but sometimes I must admit I get a bit wrapped up in doing this so often that most of the people, I'm assuming, that have the Bilt card are not necessarily the points and miles hobbyists that I and many of you all are. They just ended up getting a credit card that they thought they were going to be able to pay their rent on, may pick up some points. And I say this as an example of my son who has a Bilt card, and he's not a points and miles player. He earns some points, but he's not maximizing anything. He got the card because it was another option to be able to pay his rent. So I take it from an example from him. And So when you're talking about earning Bilt cash and you got to use it for this and blah, 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 that's what became the confusing part of it. So, what is the difference between Bilt cash and the point option? Well, it's just wording, to be honest. If you remember, what I've talked about and even had in videos as part of the whole rumor aspect was you are not going to get to the 1x point per dollar situation until you spend 75% of your rent or your mortgage. And we are still there, whether it's the Bilt cash or whether it is a very clear wording of the point system, you still got to spend 75% to get point per dollar. Now, because they went with the point situation, it ended up hurting people with the Bilt cash because you have to have that full 3% spend in your Bilt cash. There's no more partials. I think that what it ends up being is that we're really only looking at the top end people, the people that end up having the most spend of where they really have to make a decision because it's really going to be about once if you're going to spend 100% of your rent or your mortgage or more, you now have to decide, are you going to take the extra quarter point per dollar on your rent or mortgage, or are you going to take the excess Bilt cash that you may still have left over? And that gets to, what do you truly value Bilt cash to be? And it's not the face value, because of the fact that you do have restrictions of where you're going to be able to use it, which we still don't necessarily know. You also have the expiration situation of where you're only able to carry over 100 Bilt cash dollars per year. That ends up impacting what you may view that value of a Bilt cash is. But if you are falling anywhere else within things, then this is probably not going to really move the needle either way, whether you go Bilt cash or whether you go with the points. It's still pretty much a 25, 50%, 75% calculation. And unless you're spending 75% of that rent or mortgage on your other spend, you are not going to get 1 point per dollar. So that's my view of what we're looking at when it comes to Bilt so far. Now, there's a few things to kind of touch on that I think that may have gotten missed by some. So I want to also touch on that. So let me go back to this sheet. And what I would end up saying is um, the rent or mortgage that you do on this card is not actually on your credit line. This is going to tie into, I think it's called Bilt Pay, where you have to tie in your checking account. I think it's a checking. I don't think you can choose a savings account, but your account, so that it is automatically charged. And that was one of the questions I had early on before we started hearing the rumors was, how are they going to make sure that they do not, as they allow everybody as much rent or mortgage you want to pay, how are they going to protect themselves and address that credit line? Well, now they've moved it off. And it's a similar model to Mesa. Mesa, when they had it, was where you did not charge your mortgage to the card. You linked your bank account to Mesa, and and you provided them exactly what the payment amount was. They ended up tracking when the payment got made, and then they awarded you the points. So there was no transaction fee that they even had to worry about for that, as far as you paying your bill, because they didn't run it through any system. So Bilt has gone this route to a certain extent of how that's going to end up going, which it's interesting. I mean, it obviously gives them some flexibility, and for us as consumers, flexibility to pay on multiple places. I think one other thing that we've seen is the question was the credit limits. Well, they don't have to necessarily mess with the credit limits as much now. A lot of people were complaining about the fact that they were basically using up their entire credit limit for their mortgage. Well, I'm sorry, in the case of rent, and they were obviously overextended as far as their utilization rating or score each month. Same thing happened when I would do it done same way, not large amounts. much of what I've heard, and I'll be curious if anybody has already started going through that process on the soft pull for their credit limit. Most of what I've heard is it's about the same as what they've had. So far, we've also heard that there's been about 10% of the people that have basically done the soft pull and applying through cardless are getting rejected. Now, we'll see if that number changes up or down, but 10% is what Ankur Jain is saying that they have had. And if you felt like it was really incorrect, then to please reach out to customer service via email, no phone calls. So take that for what it's worth as far as that process. So my view on Bilt has not really changed that much. It's still something of where, in my view, this is going to be for people that are able to meet that 75% spend. Now, that's the tier you want to be able to get to. There are tiers underneath it, and when you talk about the three cards that they have, that's kind of where we talk about. You have the Bilt Blue card, which is the no annual fee card. It's essentially been made useless, in my opinion. I'm sure there'll be some that may disagree with me, but there's just nothing there. There's nothing that gets you to another step, or kind of um, takes the margins off of what we're dealing with, especially if you're dealing with Bilt cash. So then you have the Obsidian, which is the $95 card. The plus for that card of what you may be looking at is going to be the fact that you have the 3x on grocery or dining, which you can change each year, and you can earn points with it. You pay the $95 fee. Hopefully you are able to utilize the hotel credit, but that hotel credit, which is $100, is $50 every 6 months. And once again, it's tied to a 2-night stay. So if you do a lot of different traveling, even short trips or staycations, then you may end up making it work going through their portal to cover the $95 fee. Outside of that, yes, I'm fond of 3x. I've talked about the Capital One Saver card at 3x, versus the American Express Gold card at 4x based on that annual fee. It is points, don't get me wrong. I mean, if you're spending $500 in groceries, you're talking about 1,500 points. So you're talking about 18,000 points per year. And as long as you use the hotel credit, then you break even on the annual fee, and that's the amount of points that you get. That's tangible. It's for some people, it may even be enough to say that's the card they'll get, even if they don't maximize the rent or mortgage. It still puts them on, gives them an option to get those valuable Bilt points, which I would completely understand for that. Now, then of course you got the Palladium at $495. It's not a bad price point for the $495. Especially if you really believe that the Bilt cash that you're going to get annually is going to help you reach the threshold to get to that 75% mark, or maybe you'll have a different standard where maybe even 50% points or 0.75 will be okay with you. That's really where the threshold is going to happen with that. And if you believe it's going to do some good. And it may also be good if you don't already have a premium credit card. You're going to get the priority pass with the lounge pass. You're going to be able to get the 2x on all spending. So that's helpful. But as you'll see in my video that I'll have up in a couple of days or so, it does make you question though what cards you're competing with on that level. So for instance, the Palladium at $495, and I understand Capital One's not the easiest one to get the card for, depending on where you stand, but at $395, that's a pretty good angle for that. Plus of how you're able to make up that $395, as we've all talked about, $300 travel credit, $100 worth on the points. The Bilt card is, you're trying to make it a gateway to use for your mortgage. And I don't know about everybody else, but even when I was spending on the Mesa card with $1,000 minimum spend and 3x on home related items, 2x, I believe, on gas and groceries. I made the spend for $1,000 a month, but it wasn't it wasn't the most ideal for me. I didn't spend nearly that much on the 3x categories. And I didn't spend, so I picked it up with gas, groceries, and even some 1x categories. This is still going to be a tough run for anybody to really get great value out of the bill card unless you hit that 75%. So if you're a low or moderate spender, this is a tough one. And that's why the Bilt Blue card doesn't really mean much for you in most cases. You're probably going to be better off with a 2% cash back card or point card for that, most likely. And then at least with the Obsidian, there you're in somewhere in the ballpark of doing something. But I must admit, in my case, I am very stuck on what to do. Um, I'm still trying to run numbers because there is an opportunity cost. How much spend are you going to put on that card that doesn't get you many points per dollar, other than if you're doing the Obsidian and you have the groceries? But the dining is somewhere else probably. And if you start trying to maximize it for the points, you're not going to get enough spend for some people on Bilt. So how many points do you, in your particular case, do you have to put on the Bilt card to make it to the threshold you need to make? How much points are you losing by not maximizing each point to get to getting your mortgage or your rent paid? I'm sorry, as far as earning the points on that. That's going to be the question that we all are going to have to ask and figure out. And unfortunately, that's part of the problem. It's one thing for us hobbyists to invest the time to try to figure out that situation. For others that have had the bill card and are not necessarily even trying to maximize it, now they have to determine, will I even get the bit of points that was getting? And that becomes part of the issue. And the minimum spend that they're talking about, in my case, for instance, $1,000 in spend to get 1x. In my particular case, to get to 1x now, I would nearly have to I'd have to go up about another 500, about another $700 to even qualify. I don't really have a whole lot of monthly spend. And so that's going to be the thing. And I'm curious of what you all's thoughts are for what you all have seen and heard about the bill card. But it's a troubling aspect. I guess I'm glad that they made it simpler for knowing exactly what percentage you have to spend to get there. But it's going to be a problem for people, and I feel bad for people that were maybe just even getting a little bit into the points game with their one bill card, or maybe they had a cashback card. I think once again, I keep thinking about my son. That was his first card where there was points involved, and he still doesn't really pay too much attention to it, but it has bailed him out of a couple situations. Um, so I'm curious what you all's thoughts on it. So let me hit the comments section. And good morning to Carlos. Appreciate you coming in. Happy Sunday to everyone. Lisa Stocks, appreciate you stopping in. Always good to see you. And good morning. And Stacy says it's more of a 524 status for me. If I were going to be a stellar, if it was going to be a stellar card, then I would apply for it now and use it as a catch-all card for in between the sign-up bonuses. Since it's not that, it'll be a later card, and that's completely understandable. I see LG ended up saying greetings. I've never had Bilt before, but wanted to try it, but only the Obsidian after being approved because I prefer my other cards over their top card. Just haven't accepted. Well, congratulations at least on being able to for about getting that card for. No, I'm sorry, but as far as the potential of getting looked at for approval on that, but yeah, the Obsidian's going to be kind of the happy medium, I guess, is what it'll end up being. I've seen people start talking about the Palladium card and that people might be missing what it has. And I mean, it's got some things, but we all have a limitation on how much we're going to be looking at spending. And Mr. Copel said, if we consider the Palladium $300 sign up, 300 sign up bonus plus the 200 annual benefit and spend to meet the minimum spend, you can start with 800 Bilt cash. $1,000 of organic spend a month also ensures a 90 to 120 Bilt cash for mortgage. And I think the situation with that makes sense when you're factoring in the sign-up bonus. Um, I think the question would end up being for most people is gonna be, is where what their rent or mortgage is at. I mean, I think that's what it's gonna end up being. Yes, the Palladium is gonna give you a better shot of getting there. But and this is gonna be something that everybody's gonna have to think about. I normally would not necessarily pay an annual fee as a pay to play. Like paying 300 and some odd dollars for an American Express Gold card, I'm not trying to spend that annual fee for the pleasure of getting 4x points. Now, I understand that Bilt is going to be a bit different. They're the only game in town for getting your mortgage points on your mortgage. That may be something that I and others in some cases have to kind of factor in. And that's part of the deep dive calculations I have to figure out on what I'm doing with this. Because most of the time when you have an annual fee card, you're basically trying to see, do you have the credits to cover the cost of the annual fee? And yes, I guess if you're talking about the Bilt cash, that is part of what you're getting for it. Of course, the priority pass, although lounge access has been a bit touchy for everybody. So everybody's going to have to kind of make their own view on this. And that's what I encourage. We've got, if you're currently a Bilt card holder, we've got till January 30th. And the reality is that you're going to be able to make a decision whether you get the no annual fee card, then it's okay. Then if you're talking about the $95 card, there's enough in there to at least get through a year to test this out and see if it's going to work for you. And I would say even the same thing with the Palladium. So I will get one of the cards, but it's as far as its long term, I don't know. And that's going to be the beauty of what we're going to be able to figure out with this. So, but I appreciate y'all's thoughts on this, and especially the 524 status. People have to make a decision, and that's once again it's going to get back to how if I take up a slot against 524 or Wells Fargo's guidelines, if you start looking at them, you'll end up having to figure out how many points am I going to get off of that mortgage that I would have never gotten any other way. And so that's going to be the interesting thing that we all have to talk about. So, but that's what I wanted to kind of initially start off with, to be able to take a look at Bilt for that. Definitely, if there's more thoughts or comments, make sure to put them in. And if you're watching this afterwards, put them in the comment section. Always like being able to chat and talk about what we're seeing. Let's move on to another topic that we've got going on with this. And just a couple of some highlights that wanted to make sure to bring your attention on some deadlines and some points and miles news that we have to touch on. So we still have the Alaska credit cards with Bank of America, so I won't talk much about that. Venture X Business, if you've been interested, that ends tomorrow. I think tomorrow morning. So if you are looking at that card, you want to pull the trigger tonight if you are interested in doing this. Chase really liked the fact of the Marriott Bonvoy cards that just came up last week. These are cards where, especially on the Bonvoy Boundless, where you can be able to, as part of the welcome bonus, be able to essentially have a trip lodging already built into this. Now, obviously, keep in mind there's a big difference between points in the actual points of Marriott. So yes, this can be worth up to 250,000 points, but if you are not fully maximizing the redemption at 50,000 points per night, it's not worth that much. So, and you need to figure out, if you're going to do this, that you only have 1 year to use it. So make sure you have a plan in place of where you want to use this. This bonus just started, so you have enough time to really think it through. Never want to have a time where you're losing free night certificates because you weren't able to work out where you wanted to utilize it. Then the Chase Sapphire Business Card, we now know that welcome bonus is going to, the elevated offer is going to end on the 22nd. So make sure to keep that in mind if you're looking at that business card. World of Hyatt just started theirs, and my language is messed up on it, so I will just say what it is. So World of Hyatt, you can get 3 nights with category 1 to 4 certificates as part of the welcome bonus, which I believe is $4,000 in the first 3 months. I'll make sure to confirm that. I apologize. Then you can get an additional 2 nights if you have, I believe, $15,000 in spend in the first 6 months. Now, category 1 to 4 nights are valuable with Hyatt, but whenever you normally, most of the time when I see these 2-tier or 3-tier purchases or spend requirements, most of the time, once you get past the first tier, unless you are a committed person that really wants that welcome bonus, it's normally not going to be the value that it needs to be to warrant the second tranche of it. So $15,000 to spend for 2 more category 1 to 4 nights. It doesn't matter how much you maximize it. Yes, you're going to get the points, but it's going to be a tough one. So I still view it much more as a 3-night 1 to 4 category. And also keep in mind for that one, the same situation. You have to use it within a year. You don't get to keep them, so have a plan. Aer Lingus, British Airways, and Iberia, once again, that's a bit screwed up. These are $95 annual fee cards, and they've elevated it from 75,000 miles to 90,000 miles after $5,000 in spend in the first 3 months, and it does run till March 11th. Now, while this is part of Chase, you will not see this offer. At least when I go onto the Chase website, I don't see the offer. There are links that are not mine, but there are links that will take you to each of those cards' landing pages, which will have the 90,000 points. So I'll make sure to put that in the description if you're interested in it. And while they all have the same annual fee, definitely make sure to look at what comes with each of those cards, because they are very different, with even if you're a single traveler normally or a person that might travel with someone else, as far as companion passes, and also how much you're going to potentially fly on their metal of the Iberia, British Airways, and Aer Lingus. So make sure to look at that, because there are some key differences. Citi is still just started last week with their whole 100-year celebration, and they have elevated offers on these 3 credit cards for the Advantage Platinum, Advantage Globe, and the Executive credit card. And Wells Fargo still has the no annual fee on the Choice Hotels credit card for what we have for those. Now, as far as a few of the quick notes, Amtrak, if you're a person looking at that, they have what's called as a USA Rail Pass, and it normally costs $500, but it is nearly 50% off for the cost of $250. Now that sale ends on January 20th, but let me let you know what a rail pass is. The USA Rail Pass is for 10 rides or segments in a 30-day period. Now, when I say that there's 120 days total, that is the total time you have to use it. But once you make the first use of one of those segments, it's 30 days that you have. So make sure to keep that in mind if you were looking at something like this. Now, it is only valid with coach travel. And one key part that I think people would miss on something like this is that there are only 4, you can only take 4 one-way trips between a pair of cities. So you are not going to be able to use these 10 segments as part of the fact of commuting. That is exactly what they're trying to make sure you don't do, is to commute back and forth with this, other than those 4 trips or segments. It is also not valid on the Acela, the Auto Train, the Maple Leaf, which, as you can imagine, is the Canadian routes, or the Thruway bus series. So that's what you have for that, but it could be something useful for people. Hilton Diamond Reserve. Now, we've talked about this as the newest version of the top tier that you can't just get a credit card for. What we do know is that the Reserve Elite requires $18,000 plus 80 nights or 40 nights. That part I have to write down again. I apologize. But part of the thing that they said you were going to get is access to premium clubs. Well, they've announced 11 locations where these lounges are located. Of the 11, four of them are in North America. You have the Biltmore in Arizona, you have the Conrad in Tulum, you got the Hotel Del Coronado, which is in San Diego, you have the Conrad in Washington, D.C., and then you have the Signia by Hilton at the Atlanta World Congress Center. I'll have a link for that on the Hilton website where you'll be able to see those and as they may add on. Eva Air, which is the one of the three airlines that are Airlines of Taipei, along with Starlux and China Airlines. They are going to be starting to fly from Dulles to Taipei. And their first flight from Dulles to Taipei will take place in July. And they're going to do 4 weekly flights. It's going to be on a 787-9, 26 lie flat business seats, 28 premium economy seats, and 224 economy seats. Now, the key thing I would end up saying for that is now I'm flying from Vancouver, which is at the far west end of North America, to fly to Taipei. That flight is going to be 13 hours, I think. So you're adding on flying from the East Coast, which would be easier for me to start with, but you're going to add on some significant time. So it will probably end up being their longest flight, because even though they have one in Texas now, I'm sorry, Phoenix, I believe. Yeah, Phoenix is where they're going to be do ones as well. That's going to be a long flight. So I don't even know if I would have done that if I had the option versus just fly to Vancouver and take off from there. But that's interesting for that. And the next item would be Avianca. I put this up there only because with their purchase credit at 160% bonus would actually get you under what kind of the baseline value of Avianca points are at 1.4 cents per mile. This would bring you to 1.27 cents per mile, but they do run these often, so don't feel like you're missing out. If you have a place to go with it, then definitely look at doing it. Alaska and ITA Airways is having an interesting relationship that they're going to start. So ITA is joining the Lufthansa group after they exited from SkyTeam, and they will soon join Star Alliance, if that didn't catch you off guard with that. And you'll be able to earn Atmos points when you're flying ITA Airways. Now, it doesn't work any other way. You can't redeem to fly ITA, and it is only that for right now. But there's most likely going to be some improvements in some additional items in the future, because Italy right now is the most requested location for flights from the Seattle hub for Alaska or Atmos program. So we will probably end up seeing like an interline agreement, maybe some code sharing, so that when people do end up flying Alaska from Seattle to Italy, that they'll be able to get on ITA Airways to do some more, to continue on from there within Europe. So it's a good first step, and we obviously have seen Alaska do a lot with creating these different relationships outside of their core alliance under One World. Marriott Annual Choice. Now, if you've stayed at least 50 nights on Marriott, and essentially I believe that's platinum status, you have a deadline of February 1st to pick your Marriott Annual Choice. You also have a second annual choice once you get to 75 nights. Now, if you do not choose by February 1st, you'll automatically be put with the nightly upgrade reward. Now, elite nights with Marriott for this can be earned by the paid stays, award stays, or the certificate stays. So if you are in that situation, definitely keep an eye on that. This is not going to be the same as if you had the Marriott Brilliant credit card where you get the platinum status. It has its own structure of getting bonuses with that, not under this annual choice category. Cathay Pacific is going to be opening up a new lounge at JFK, and it's expected to open mid-year. And it ties with the whole relocation of Cathay Pacific from Terminal 8 to Terminal 6 at JFK. Now, the lounge will be approximately 10,000 square feet. One of the things that I think is really nice about this, and it's definitely going to be one of the newer concepts for here in the United States, is that premium travelers will be able to direct board from the lounge. We normally see that in Europe as well as the Middle East. I think we are seeing it with the new Delta One um, exclusive setup, I think, at a couple of locations. But I think that's pretty interesting if you are going to be a premium flyer on it. IHG has its first US all inclusive resort, which is the Voco Sandpiper All Inclusive, which is in Port St. Lucie, Florida. 335 rooms and suites, family pool, splash pad, adults only infinity pool. Now, you will be able to save 35% on bookings of 3 nights or more if you do it by January 31st. The cost is 320 starts at $321 per night, including taxes and fees, or 72,000 IHG points. So, something to be of interest if you are looking at an all-inclusive for the family, but don't necessarily want to go out of the country. Then we also have a promotion from Hilton Points, Hilton, which is called Hilton Points Unlimited. 2,000 points per stay, and there's no minimum. And as far as nights, so this can be a 1 night stay at a place to earn the 2,000 points. This is January 15th through April 30th. Registration is required, and I'll obviously have a landing page on Hilton's website where you could be able to do that, as well as look at the terms and conditions, and as far as being able to stay with them for that. So now we get to the strategy session, and a couple of things that I had saw. Let me get to this one. Good afternoon to you, Pan Newbie. Thanks for the analysis on Bilt's current offering. Wonder how many more changes will be made before February 7th. I think I think they're going to be smart enough to not do any more. I think they have to stand pat now. They've already made big enough changes that impacted even the Bilt cash with the point option. So I think they're going to have to stand pat. I think we'll get more of a reality from them at the end of year one. They already don't want you to do upgrades and downgrades during the first year. So you're going to be locked into whatever card you end up getting. And and they're going to let you bounce between the points and the Bilt cash. You can do it each month, and then you will get switched over the following month. That is a lot of moving parts for them. My view of what's going to probably end up happening is that you're probably going to end up seeing, by the time that the end of the first year ends up happening, is that you will see either the option to go back and forth to happen probably every quarter, every 6 months. I don't think they'll go as far as a year yet, but they're not going to let you keep doing that every month. Then, if they really don't do well with the Bilt cash, then I think we will see a modification to that stream of doing it. Now, it's going to be hard for them I think for the masses, it wouldn't be a big deal, but they really want those spenders, and those spenders are going to most likely be picking Bilt cash. So I don't think it goes away, but I think they're going to find that the people that are able to maximize Bilt cash aren't moving anyway. So I think that they will end up just extending how much time you must stay under one category for it. And obviously, it's not going to benefit us beyond this first year to figure out where we want to be to do that going forward, because the Bilt cash that you earned, unless you were able to use it that month, now you've started the clock on that Bilt cash, and you want to make sure you use it before you move to the points and back and forth. So I think we're going to see something along those lines when we talk about that. But I think that they have to stand pat now and just trust where they stand and kind of go from there. So, but it's a good question. Now, as far as the strategy session, 2 items. One is a sleeper card that I don't have, and probably a lot of people don't have, but it actually got better with this refresh. But they didn't change. They didn't increase the annual fee. And how many times do we see where a card actually gets better off, but doesn't raise the fee? So I want to be able to show you that one first. And this one is going to be the Air France KLM credit card. Now, as we all know, the Flying Blue program is one of the more versatile currencies for us to use. A lot of the credit card issuers have that as one of the transfer partners. So let's talk about what this card may be, and it may be something that's beneficial for you. So the card has already been out since 2019, and it's under Bank of America. So as far as the changes that it's gone under, it is currently a World Elite MasterCard. It's going to move to a Visa Signature card. Now that transition is supposed to start in March, but if you're a current card holder, they say you can begin to use the new benefits of Visa Signature now before you have the card in hand. I don't know how that'll all work, and it may depend on what benefit you're trying to utilize, but that's at least what they're saying. You currently, with the card, get 5,000 Flying Blue points for each year as long as you're spending at least $50, which is not bad at all. You get 20 of their XP, their points each year for their elite status points, and it's no foreign transaction fees. So it's been a steady card, but not one that you necessarily put on your list of things to get. Here's what the improvements they've done. First, you obviously are going to have the Visa Signature perks because you're moving to a Visa Signature credit card. You're going to earn 80 X points instead of 40 X points after you spend $15,000 on the card. Now, that's substantial spend, don't get me wrong. 60 points additional if you reach the $25,000 mark. Now that's 160 points of XP points total. I believe that either at 180 or 200, I'll have to go back to find that. You reach gold status with them, and that gets you some lounge access with it. So that's what but once again, you're spending to get there. The other thing, it's 3 miles per dollar on Air France, KLM, and SkyTeam. That already existed. I found it interesting, though, of how many airline credit cards that you all know of that includes the actual brand that they're dealing with, but also that team, in this case, SkyTeam. The new, it already gets 1.5 miles per dollar, which is solid for regular earning, but you're now going to get 3 miles per dollar on dining on the card. And that's not rotating or anything. That is a set new option, or not option, but a new multiplier for the card. The welcome bonus is bumped up to 70,000 miles and 100 of those X points after spending $3,000 on purchases in the first 90 days. So if I can see where this card is one where if you utilize Air France, KLM, or SkyTeam in that case, 3 miles per dollar is something that's tangible. And because if you're going to have a decent amount of spend, this could be an option for you. But wanted to point that out as a new and improved card, and the annual fee did not increase on this card, which is the most important aspect of it. The other thing that I wanted to point out, and the credit goes to Thrifty Traveler on this, and where you can tangibly save 70% or more on your Delta SkyMiles award bookings for long haul. Now, obviously, the whole Sky Pesos thing has obviously been something that stuck with SkyMiles. I am a fan of SkyMiles. I fly Delta a lot. Well, when I do fly, I normally like to fly Delta. Excuse me, and I don't worry about the conversion rate. It's just the place. It's what I like to fly when I'm flying domestic for the most part. So, but flying Delta One has been an interesting thing for Delta on the SkyMiles. Excuse me. So the pricing, though, if you've looked at what Delta SkyMiles costs to do long haul flights, it's literally heart stopping of how expensive it is. But the credit goes to Thrifty Traveler because they identified a hack that appeared back in 2023 that appears to be available right now. But I will premise this as they did as well. Once there's enough people that know about a hack, Delta and many other places will try to shut it down very quickly. So if you were looking at trying to do Delta One, this is something you'll want to know about, but you want to invest some time to look if something fits for you sooner than later. So the hack is basically, instead of departing from the United States, is to depart from Mexico. And it is a substantial difference, not just tangible. And here were a couple of three routes that they showed. Flying Delta One from LAX to Melbourne. Now I flew Qantas from LAX to Sydney, and I knew how high Delta One was. Delta One to fly on SkyMiles from LAX to Melbourne is 340,000 SkyMiles, and that's one way. But if you originated the flight from Puerto Vallarta, that would drop that one-way flight, I'm sorry, that flight down to 102,000 SkyMiles. That's it. So you would fly from Puerto Vallarta to LAX and then to Melbourne, all on that one ticket. That is, I mean, you're talking about nearly 70% off on that. Another route that they showed was Delta One from CDG, which is Paris, to Atlanta, because this works both ways. That's the plus of it. It isn't just you flying from Mexico to Europe, Asia, the Pacific. It works coming back the other way as well. And this was an example they showed. Flying from Paris to Atlanta would normally be 420,700 SkyMiles. It still blows me away seeing that number. But if you finished in Mexico City, so from Paris to Atlanta and ended in Mexico City, that number has dropped down as much as 80 to 89,200 SkyMiles. We're talking about a hack that essentially makes this tangible. I mean, you're now getting to start talking about you could tangibly possibly use your SkyMiles to fly Delta One. That's exciting. Then they all talked about flights to South Africa, which are typically 500,000 miles one way on Delta One. But if you included Cancun as the start and end point, that number could drop down to as low as 94,000 SkyMiles. So this is something I had heard about before. In one of their articles that Thrifty Traveler did, had talked about this went away. They didn't see it it kind of died out in 2023 of when it ended. And they now were looking at these and are finding various locations in travel to be able to do as long as you hook in Mexico with it. Now, of course, it involves repositioning for us to get to Mexico and all. But if you are a person that has a lot of Amex miles, that Amex points, one that likes to fly Delta, has earned points, this is something where flights that would have been out of the realm of possibility for you to be able to do, maybe bucket list trips, now are actually within the realm of it. But, and I say that I stress this as much as they stressed in their article, this is not something that you can expect that is going to last forever. Once Delta has seen that people are kind of catching on to this, you can expect that it's probably going to go away or at least get reduced. So I don't have anything planned to do that kind of long distance travel right now, but with this coming into play and with you being able to go about a year out, I will actually take some time over the next week to see if there is something, because Delta One would be something I'd be interested in flying in, to go to one of these locations. So I say that only to make you aware of this. We don't know how long it's going to last. And obviously we're talking about this has been 3 years ago, essentially, since the last time people were finding these. So if you're interested, if you've been looking at it, at least invest some time for yourself, your significant other, your family, of a possibility of this because, once again, a round trip flight in Delta One that is for 800,000 up to 1 million points is not something that the average person is going to have. But if you're talking about 250, 300,000 miles, 400,000 miles round trip, now we've opened things up a bit. So I wanted to make sure to bring that to you just in case for that. I thought that was an excellent article that they did. So I definitely give them a lot of credit for being able to point that out. I was thinking about that card last night. Yeah. As far as Bilt, the Air France one. Yeah, it's an interesting card. Obviously, most people are not going to get the card if they're concerned about their 524 status, but there might be a little sweet spot for people that might want to that fly them often. Obviously, we use their points. I used Air France points to fly from Vancouver to Taipei and to Taipei to Shanghai, all on their points with very good deals. So I really like their currency. But it's an interesting one. So if you're looking at that card or were looking at it, it definitely has gotten better. And I see Earl Thomas says it seems like the best card for families that want to travel overseas. Yeah, it definitely can be. Although I will say that I'm still a huge fan of the Atmos Summit card for Alaska Airlines. Because of the fact that you can use that card, because of the relationships that Alaska has through their Atmos Rewards program, and then when you're traveling, it's a great card. That is the main card my wife and I are gonna use when we're in Asia, because of being able to get the 3x points on those foreign transactions. So I will be using that as much as possible for that to see how it goes. But I think it is a very good card. But there are a lot of different ones, so you always got to pay a little bit of attention to see which one works best for you. But those are my thoughts that I wanted to be able to share with you all today, especially Bilt. And so look for a video that'll go more in depth on the cards themselves, and some other different things that I might have picked up along the way with it. Hopefully by Wednesday at the latest. I'm not the fastest one to get stuff out, so but look for that. And want to make sure if anybody's got any other thoughts or anything that comes on. I see that Earl said, is the Atmos card great for those who are on the East Coast? I think it is. And I think it's because of the fact that it depends upon where, let me say it differently. So I think it's a great card because you can still be able to work with American Airlines and not just Alaska. There is limitations if you were just flying Alaska. In my case, where at my home airport, I only have one flight out of my town here to fly Alaska, and it only flies to Seattle. So I must admit, I've had what used to be the Ascent, well, what's now the Ascent card. I've not used that. I've not spent enough on that card to reach the companion pass level. So that's been an issue because I would have had to get to Seattle to try to go anyplace else. But with the Summit card, with the companion, though essentially a worldwide companion, and with them building up the Seattle hub for international travel, that's where I see being able to do something. As far as using the Atmos points, I've used their points to fly American Airlines and gotten very good value out of it. So that's where I think the Summit card does well because of that. And then there's obviously different sweet spots that come with Alaska Airline ones. I used to look for Starlux to fly to Taipei for 75,000 points each way, flying business, but I've not seen as much of those. It does pop up from time to time. But when I think of the most versatile currencies, it's going to be Atmos for Alaska Airlines. It can be American too. I kind of put them in the same bucket. Avianca to a certain extent. I know some people swear by it. I have not had the greatest experience of points and such with them. And then, of course, Air France KLM Flying Blue. So, but that's my thought on that. I was under the impression the Atmos was for the West Coast people. It is because there's more places to fly Alaska out west, but I think now because they are making their international activity. Now it's going to go. I'll be out of Seattle, but I live in the Midwest in Ohio. But I'm willing to fly to Seattle to fly to Europe and some of these other locations that they're going to do. I don't think we're going to see big discounts on them because they're so new, but I see where they're going with it. And those Atmos points, once again, I will use them for flying American Airlines a lot domestically. And I think they've had some very good redemption. So, but I definitely understand the thought about it being a West Coast thing. It still is somewhat, but now because they weren't flying international and now they've opened that up, I think it helps a lot for it to do it, even though you have to get to Seattle to do it. So, but those are my thoughts. I wanted to be able to share that with you all today. Make sure to let me know if you've got any questions, thoughts, or comments. I always like to hear what you all are thinking. Bilt obviously has been the hottest topic anywhere, all over the place, and I find more negative about it than good. It's just a matter of being realistic of what Bilt's going to do for you, and it's going to be different for everybody. So I want to be able to share that. And Nemo, Los Angeles, thanks. No, thank you for stopping in. Really appreciate it. So thank you all so much for spending a little bit of time with me today, and I hope it was helpful for you as you go through the week. And if you got any questions or anything, let me know. I'll talk with you all soon. Have a great day.